Whenever a major international football tournament comes along, you can expect a few of those games to be at the top of the viewing charts for that particular year. And if England happen to do well, then the excitement reaches fever pitch, with seemingly every man, woman and pet painting the St George's Cross on their face and sporadically screaming "It's coming home" every 15 minutes. So it's no surprise that the big games seem to attract tens of millions of viewers. But it's not all international football matches that make this list. There are a few surprises from club football too. This list is based on highest peak television audience over the course of the game. At number 10, it's England versus Germany in the Euro 96 semi-final. Prior to 1996, the public had fallen out of love with the English national team, following a long-running association with hooliganism in the game and their failure to qualify for the 1994 World Cup. The upcoming home tournament build-up was perhaps a little flat. But once the football started, the spirit of the team captured the public's imagination with a big group stage win against the Netherlands and a quarter-final triumph against Spain on penalties. The semi-final against Germany drew an audience of 23.8 million on the BBC. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be for England as they crashed out on penalties. At number 9, it's Liverpool versus Club Brugge in the 1978 European Cup final. Liverpool were the dominant club side in European football in the 1970s, and it showed, with an audience of 23.9 million tuning in to watch Kenny Dalglish score the only goal of the game as Liverpool won their second European Cup, now known as the Champions League. The fact that the final was held at Wembley may have also added to the interest to the TV audience. At number 8, it's Bayern Munich versus Leeds in the 1975 European Cup final. Another English team in a European final in the 70s was Leeds United. They travelled to Paris to take on holders Bayern Munich. This was only the second time an English club had appeared in a European Cup final, however Bayern would win the game 2-0. The game is known for a controversial goal that was ruled out for offside. That still has people talking in some parts of Yorkshire today. Bayern went on to make it a hat-trick of European Cup wins in the 75-76 season, but would have to wait until 2001 to lift the trophy again. Interestingly, that could have been a repeat of the 1975 final, with Leeds reaching the semi-finals again, losing out to eventual runners-up Valencia. At number 7, it's Benfica versus Manchester United in the 1968 European Cup final. As the first English team to reach a European Cup final, Manchester United drew an audience of 26 million for their clash at Wembley with Benfica. Their success came 10 years on from the Munich air disaster and was a catalyst for the English success to come in the 70s and 80s. At number 6, it's West Germany versus England in the 1990 World Cup semi-final. Another English penalty heartbreak at number 6, this time at Italia 90. Again, the audience figures had built as Bobby Robson's side gained momentum, peaking with 26.2 million for the semi-final. This was a joint broadcast between BBC and ITV. At number 5, it's England versus Denmark at Euro 2020. Another semi-final for England, but this time with different outcomes. The delayed Euro 2020 tournament was the first time UEFA had chosen 12 host cities to stage matches, with Wembley being chosen to host the semi-finals and final. The semi-final, which was shown on ITV in the UK, gained a peak viewing figure of 26.3 million, and that rose further with the modern inclusion of online and catch-up services. The difference in outcome would be that England made it to their first major final since 1966, thanks to Harry Kane's extra-time goal. At number 4, Croatia versus England in the 2018 World Cup semi-final. The precursor to that success came 3 years earlier when England reached the semi-final of the 2018 World Cup. Again shown on ITV, a peak audience of 26.5 million people watched Croatia earn a 2-1 win to meet France in the final. With England out, only an audience of 11.4 million was recorded for the final between France and Croatia. It's the UK's lowest TV audience for a World Cup final since the current monitoring system was implemented in 1981. Our only FA Cup final on the list comes from April 1970. In fact, this is actually an FA Cup final replay, with the first game being held at Wembley, ending in a fiercely contested 2-2 draw. This helped to build the anticipation for the first FA Cup final replay since 1912. The reason for the final being played in April and not May was to allow extra time for the England national team to acclimatise to Mexican temperatures before the 1970 World Cup. 28.5 million people tuned into the replay, which was held at Old Trafford, with Chelsea eventually winning 2-1. Number 2, Italy versus England in the final of Euro 2020. A match that had been 55 years in the making was never going to fail to attract a huge audience. Excitement was fever pitch, and Three Lions was audible from every street corner. A peak of 31 million watched the game either on BBC or ITV, and this doesn't take into account the 11 million that also watched online. If you do take that into account, this is the most watched event in UK history. England's opening group game against Croatia peaked at 11.6 million viewers, meaning viewership nearly tripled over the course of the competition. It's estimated that over 80% of the nation's television audience were watching this match. At number 1, it's England versus West Germany in the World Cup final of 1966. Of course, the number 1 spot is reserved for, at time of filming, England's only win of a major football competition. The 30th of July 1966 saw a peak of 32.3 million people as they watched England beat West Germany 4-2 after extra time. Like in more modern finals, the game was also shown between both BBC and ITV, with the pre-match shows Grandstand and World of Sport beginning the battle for viewership early with extensive pre-match build-up. A large percentage of the audience watched on BBC, where they heard the famous commentary of Kenneth Wolstenholme for Geoff Hurst's goal. On ITV, the smaller percentage would have heard Hugh Jones cry out,
"Seconds ticking away as Martin Peters goes forward. Geoff Hurst goes forward. He might make it 3. He has! He has! And that's it!
England were world champions, and it remains the most watched event in British television history.